James,
Raf.
how much do you reckon Hamish and Andy got paid for the Hubbl ads?
I'd hope it'd be quite a bit. Well,
So, like, Hamish is famously very rich, not just because whatever Hamish and Andy are very, very, very popular, but his wife is obviously caking.
Zoe Foster-Blake is killing it on the cosmetics front. Well, look, the AFR reported that the Hubbl launch party, just the party they threw in Sydney, was $1 million.
At the Moonlight Cinemas.
$1 million party. Right? And that's just for the, who cares about launch events? Let's be honest. They would have to be getting, what do you reckon? Like five?
I reckon maybe 10 total, so 5 each, yeah.
$5 million a piece, I was about to say, yeah.
I mean, I know that's a lot of cash, but maybe too much. You got one rich dude and one very rich dude who, like, are comedians and have no real reason to do anything, saying yes to it. The number has to be high.
It's got to be high.
What would it be for Down Round Boys to be promoting it?
Well, I reckon...
And bear in mind that there could be some Foxtel marketing folk, or at least like the agency that...
They're not going to love this episode. I'm going to put it out to you.
But we would do it for...
I reckon if they gave us $3,000.
Yeah, I was thinking around that.
$3,000, I would do it. I would do an entire 6-episode series about Hubbl. And
do you reckon Hamish got more than Andy for 2 reasons? One...
He's a bigger name.
And 2, he had to dress in the TV costume.
And he was like, they rebranded them as like Hubbl and Andy. So he's the one who actually had to have his brand violated.
Brand violation. In this circumstance, let's be honest, I'm going to be the one who ends up in the TV, aren't I?
You're going to be the one in the TV for sure. But just imagine like a sort of, actually, hit us with a Down Round intro. Start with
James.
Raf.
I thought you were going to say Hubbl.
Sorry, I was about to launch into. Did you check out House of the Dragon?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was amazing.
That's bullshit. You haven't watched a TV show in 25 years.
This is true.
Anyway, if anyone's listening from Foxtel, give us a call. Look, it's much requested. We've had multiple people reach out to us on our Discord and Twitter. Actually, there were quite a few people on Twitter that were like, when are you guys going to talk about Hubbl? And we put it off a little bit on the basis that it's kind of boring and sucks. It's not a great product. But everyone's asking because, and this is for the benefit of our American audience, our international audience. If you live in Australia, you have been assailed for probably 2 months, maybe more, for ads for a product called Hubbl, Hubbl, which has been promised over and over again as this is going to revolutionize the way Australians stream media.
Yeah, it's worth, I guess, talking about even, again, speaking to our international audience. This does seem to be happening basically everywhere except for the US. The US, I think it's actually happening in some ways on Turbo. There's 9 million of these different things. It's definitely happening in UK with Sky, blah, blah, blah. But what we're talking about is, forgive me if this sounds familiar, a box that you plug into your TV that has kind of a home screen on which you log into the variety of different streaming services that you sign up for.
Correct.
Now, you may be thinking...
Hang on a minute. That sounds a little bit like...
Apple TV.
Any one of the 100 devices that exist.
Google Chromecast, or my TV itself.
Oh, yeah. Literally my TV, which runs Android, as many of them do now. Or my Roku, or whatever. You're absolutely correct. It is like that. But it does contain a bit of market capture in the sense that this is being produced by Foxtel, which is our pay TV provider of many, many years.
Yeah, but which is majority owned by News Corp. He'd be affecting you too. That's right. It's Murdoch, folks. It's Rupert Murdoch, who down here, I mean, Fox. It's the Fox in the Foxtel.
That's right. Yep. And the Tel is Telstra.
Yeah, Telstra does still own a third of Foxtel.
Yep.
Which, is kind of weird because, in my mind, I actually do see Telstra as, they've done pretty well. I see them as, a business that the services they offer are pretty premium. They're technologically competent. The app's good for the most part.
Telstra has the benefit of, Yes, they've taken some swings on content, including like Foxtel, but they haven't gone down the route of like American telecommunications providers in that like buying enormous legacy businesses and trying to become gigantic content businesses. Yes, they've had every now and again, like every few years, Telstra comes out and says, we're actually a tech company.
Yeah.
And tries to do something wacky. But for the most part, yes.
They're not Verizon or Comcast. Having said that, Hubbl, the technology they've licensed is from Comcast.
Yeah. But again, like you don't really hear about Telstra in the context of Foxtel that much. Like,
yeah. That's what I mean. I was surprised that it's still the case that Telstra has such a large stake in, let's be honest, like a structurally declining industry.
A hugely structured decline. Because, normally when you hear about it, it's normally in the context of like it's a News Corp thing. News Corp seems way more invested in making it successful. Telstra, yeah. But as you say, in terms of those two sides of the bargain, News Corp is having their business eaten away on every frontier, whereas Telstra still has the benefit of great 5G network, at least very good, and people are, at least for the foreseeable future, still going to need internet connections.
Yes.
That side of their business is not going away.
Yes, people, and this is one of the key issues here, the internet.
Exactly. The internet happened. Establish a timeline. Let's say widespread access to the internet in Australia happened from 1996 through to like 2005.
Mm-hmm.
Let's give that as a rough time frame of like people getting onboarded onto the internet.
Yeah.
In 2024, Foxtel stood up and went, "What the fuck?"
Wait, people are watching shows using internet-connected devices?
It'll never take off. Obviously, we're exaggerating a little bit. But we thought, we'll talk about it because everyone in Australia has been like, why the fuck am I getting pounded with Hubbl ads? And from what I sound like, it just seems like a shit Apple TV.
Yes.
But also there's like a broader conversation, I think, which we'll get into, is just talking about, it's been a while since we've checked in on streaming and like that kind of the tech media landscape. We've touched on it a few times, but there's a few little things to chat about. But yes, the Hubbl. To establish in really clear terms what it is, because it does, at least on the surface, offer maybe a little bit more than your Apple TV. Claims to, at least.
Yes.
$99 it costs.
Yep. Good price.
Great price.
How much is a basic Apple TV nowadays? $150 or something?
Yeah, I think it's about $150.
But a Google Chromecast is like $50.
Is less, yes. But also Google Chromecast technically have as much because it's just like a box to send, like the entry level one is just the thing to send stuff to, right?
I don't. Oh, it's like to stream your phone to the TV.
Yeah, like you like to send stuff from your phone.
You can't like log. I have absolutely no idea about what the fuck. I've never owned a Google Chromecast to the point where someone in their Discord, someone made a good point that it's like people keep saying like, isn't this just a Google Chromecast? And that's ignoring the fact that the Google Chromecast or whatever is absolutely dog shit UI. And then someone else was like, yeah, I have to admit that it's pretty annoying that it having the ads in there. And I was like, what the hell? There are ads on your TV kind of platform?
And I was, I use an Apple TV for most of the stuff that I watch, but I've got a Sony Bravia. It runs Android. And if you turn on your TV, it boots open like the Google home screen. And there are like ads. And they're like content ads. So it's an ad for like, whatever the big show on Amazon Prime is or whatever. But
that's
still.
Crazy. I don't know how you people live with this. Like, I don't understand. That's not acceptable. Maybe one day in the future, like, don't get me wrong, Apple have been showing signs where they friggin' put ads for Music Plus in settings, which I think stepped over the line. I've made that very clear. I texted into my favorite podcasts and you got to talk about this shit. This is disgusting. I texted into Apple. Everyone I know who worked at Apple got an email from me saying, never, ever again put your ads in my settings menu, in my preferences. So I'm not claiming that Apple are above putting ads in like Apple TV home screen. However, to me, that feels out of bounds. That feels out of bounds.
You believe that the TV should be...
It's sacrosanct.
You're telling me against 80 years of precedent that a TV should have no ads on it.
Just the home screen.
What is it about the TV home screen you find sacrosanct? Keeping in mind there hasn't been a TV home screen for that long.
Well, but it's like my desktop home screen. Like I was divorcing. Okay. I was removing myself from the TV ecosystem because let me be clear.
So you're saying it's like putting an ad on your desktop background.
Exactly. Which again, don't get me wrong. Like on Windows, when you friggin' press like the Windows Start button, it has like an ad in there, right? Like again, I don't know how people just live life with this shit happening to them. But, it feels like Bonzi Buddy or whatever to me. Like
Bonzi Buddy.
Yeah, like. There are some parts of your digital life that I do feel are sacrosanct. I would not expect ads on my home screen.
There are certain sacred experiences you shouldn't invite a little purple ape into. Like, I can't even. I do. What the fuck was Bonzi Buddy? What was this whole deal?
Oh, that was.
I remember the whole.
That was a big hack. That was a big trust hack. That was when everyone was still like, oh yeah. Downloading crap and putting it into my taskbar and onto my computer is good. Like,
it was before people developed like the baseline knowledge.
Bonzi Buddy was the last straw. Sorry, if people don't know what the hell we're talking about, you could in the early 2000s, I believe, download a little blue ape that lived on your
purple monkey
that lived on your desktop. That I think ostensibly gave you shortcuts to search engines, maybe, but it also would then it was just adware that you couldn't remove and just give you ads.
Yeah, but I can't even remember. How did you interact with the little ape?
It just sat there all the time.
I know it sat there all the time, but like I remember it it had little animations and stuff.
I think you clicked on it and like asked Jeeves or whatever.
Yeah, well that's the thing. I think you could ask and stuff because there was definitely like a novelty factor to like I've got a little nasty little ape that lives on my computer and I can ask it questions or whatever.
Anyway, sorry, we're a long way removed from where I was getting. But I do not.
This episode's now about Bonzi Buddy. I don't understand what the fuck was going on with that.
But that to me seems like why would I buy a box that I plug into my TV that had ads on the home screen? That's just my opinion.
Yeah, as a man who doesn't watch movies or TV,
no,
he still finds it absolutely disgraceful that would occur.
Yes,
I know. I totally understand that. Anyway. The Hubbl is one of these, although it also does have a TV tuner in it, so you can connect free-to-air television on there. On a Apple TV, you can download
7 app, 9 app, whatever.
You can basically watch
ABC.
Any of that stuff, but you can't tune it to a free-to-air broadcast.
So for people who are used to that, it's a bit more seamless, which is the same as Foxtel Box, right? Like the Foxtel Box it kind of has everything shoved in together.
That's right, yeah. And then the last kind of piece of the puzzle is that it does offer sort of a bundling layer as well. So obviously Foxtel now has broken out their core service into a bunch of different streaming services. So, to take yourself back in time, this is not radically different to other parts of the world in terms of cable service.
And again, for foreign audiences, foreigners as we call them, like Foxtel was cable TV, just like a cable TV box you'd buy with cable attached to your house or a satellite attached to your house. You pay for Foxtel, you got a little box, you could watch more channels than the regular freeway.
And it used to be like $80 a month, perhaps more. I think the top packages were like 110, 115. And you get all the sport you could ever want, plus...
Well, no, sport was an add-on.
Yeah, no, but if you're paying for like the 100 and something, you're most likely getting sport as part of that.
Yeah.
Plus all the movie channels and all that sort of stuff. Exactly the same way as it is basically anywhere. They've now split off a huge portion of like the Foxtel service into a bunch of different, verticals. You got KO, which is sport. You have Binge, which is kind of everything else. You got Flash, which is news. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I think there might be another one in there somewhere. Even though Flash, the idea of like I pay money and I get like CNN and Fox News and stuff like that.
I mean, what is the audience?
That's for real.
Maybe corporate, maybe.
Yeah,
but like even then, like most places that they just have one channel on all the time.
Yeah.
Like you're not Sky. Really, there's not exactly Sky here. It's like you're not really flicking, but it's not someone just feeling like, this is a bit boring. Let's flick to the other news station.
Any individual who's invested enough in news is not going to be watching it on different channels.
Yeah, like one at a time.
No.
In linear. That is a weird one.
Based on the fact that I get so many text message marketing from Foxtel being like, hey, you get 6 months free of Flash. And I've never clicked the link because why the fuck would I want it? Yeah. But I feel like I've gotten that message probably a dozen times over the past 18 months. They're obviously, I don't think they're selling it super well. Anyway, Hubbl does offer like a bundling service with its own platforms and services, but also the other ones that you may know really well, like your Netflixes and
Disney.
Disney. I don't know if Disney's on there, but like Paramount, I think is one of them. The idea being that if you buy it through Hubbl or subscribe through Hubbl, and you have a certain number of other services, you get like a discount on the monthly subscriptions through Hubbl. And I think it could amount to as much as like $10 a month off or something.
But then you're kind of stuck with all of them, right? Like,
yeah, and then you got to consume them through your Hubbl. And it's apart from that, it's exactly the same as a normal streaming experience. This has been pitched to people as like, this is going to revolutionize the way you watch TV.
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily true for anyone that's like...
got any listener of this show.
Well, any listener of this show, yeah. Which is why I think people have been so keen to...
Obviously, contextually, people are cutting the cord. Newsflash.
Wow.
Newsflash. People are cutting the... Cable TV is in decline.
Yep.
Would you believe? No, but this is obviously true. Like, look at Foxtel's earnings, which are broken out of the News Corp ones. 10% year-on-year decline in... They call it like residential, commercial, something or other. Whatever. Point being, people are obviously not getting rid of their cable box. We all know this. This is not anything new. And they're also experiencing growth, I believe, with KO, I believe, is flat. But, they've got their own apps, much less like Netflix clones in the, binge is like just basically a Netflix, right? Like it's...
Yeah. They have original Australian content and things
there you
like
go.
that.
So it's a complete Netflix clone, basically, with the majority of content being licensed from other places. They know that that's the world it's going to. They've got to somehow transition people like in that middle ground. People who aren't just going to have a cable TV box till they die have got to go somewhere. And I think that's basically the audience for this.
Yeah, I think the idea seems to be... because
which is older Gen X.
Yeah, or boomers, basically, younger boomers. I mean, it is funny because like during this whole transition to streaming, there's been this ongoing realization, I think this is true of basically every cable provider globally. The classic model of you subscribe to a cable provider, you get hundreds of channels, you pay a pretty high figure, like I said, over $100 a month for a lot of Foxtel subscribers, and then like you get that box that sits in your TV cabinet, and it is the way that you consume all television. Yeah, like whether it's free to air or what.
It's worth talking about the kind of some of the business model around that and some of the paradigms of that, because what you get there is like the ability, like lots of abilities to arbitrage in a lot of ways, because some people are going to sign up just because they want to watch lifestyle content. It's like my mum.
Yep.
And they're subsidizing the kind of Fox 8s of the world or the entertainment. She also watches a little bit of sport, like she watches the footy and the cricket. She loves the cricket, but she's not watching other sport or whatever. So therefore, people have their different preferences. They buy it for different reasons. She buys the upgraded sport package so she can watch the cricket or whatever. She's kind of subsidizing reality TV, but the reality TV people are kind of subsidizing the sport and blah, blah, blah. And like you have the ability to kind of make that work and make a pretty decent profit because you can kind of work out what people's key interests are and then like maximize value in each kind of vertical. Like so, and to be perfectly frank, like, and you have like dynamics like, okay, sport is great for onboarding people because people really want to watch the exclusive sport, but it's very expensive. So actually, like there are certain people who just watch Fox 8 and watch reruns of friggin' Buffy the Vampire Slayer or whatever it is.
Yeah,
they're kind of subsidizing that upfront sport cost, but as the sport people, like someone else in their family actually loves Fox 8 and blah, 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 blah. So you can do all these kind of dynamics. The streaming world is very different where it's just like, and also the stickiness. Sorry, that's dynamic number 2. Once you've got a cable box and you usually signed up for a 12-month plan, like it's not leaving, let's be honest. Once you're cutting the cable, you're cutting the cable. You're not unsubscribing and then in 3 months later, like, actually it does look good what Foxtel is offering and then pick it up again. Whereas streaming, you can kind of just do that.
The classic, everything you just said, but also the classic fact that once you have a physical box in someone's house, and Foxtel used to always, they would release periodically new models. Like, you'd have
IQ.
The HD model, like the various models of like Foxtel IQ up to, I think it was like 1 through 4, and they progressively got new things added to them, like
voice search.
Yeah, totally. They eventually brought it to high definition and then beyond, and then they introduced like the TiVo style recording. This was before the IQ, where you could record stuff and save it on the internal hard drive. But the idea is once you have a box in your house, that's just like an anti-churn mechanism. Because like you've got it, it's been installed, it's plugged in, it's how you use your machine. People don't even dream of getting rid of it. Because that would mean like...
You lose access to everything.
You lose access to everything, you got to redo it. And, you know, in the past, there was no real reason to. Like, you either want a bunch of content or you just want to have free-to-air.
Yeah.
But
you'd have to be going through tough times to cut the cable.
That's right. And I know, like, for a very long time, even after Netflix launched and, like, younger people were making the jump. I'm talking, like, early 2000s, early to mid-2000s, especially after Netflix launched in Australia. They still thought in terms of, at Foxtel, like, the golden standard is those people who have that box and they're paying us $100 a month. That's the dream. And we got to keep those people for as long as possible and keep them on. And I think that like it's been a very messy transition for them over to, okay, we have an entire audience here. I think one of the big dividing lines was like when Game of Thrones was huge. That was like visibly one of the big moments because obviously Foxtel was getting HBO content. They still do. They're about to lose it, which we'll talk about in a sec. But yeah, when it was a moment where there were a whole bunch of like millennials basically who wanted to watch in their fucking share house Game of Thrones when it was big, couldn't get it on any other streaming service. The two options were like either they fucking pirate it, they're not going to buy a whole fucking Foxtel subscription.
Yeah.
So this was back when Foxtel was trying to do like Foxtel Go.
Yeah, Foxtel Go.
And Foxtel Play, I think was one of the other ones. Their own kind of like really bolted on streaming services. They weren't even really streaming services. They were kind of just like very limited ways to access that content digitally.
I think Foxtel Now was another thing as well, but
they
really kind of...
There was a point where I can't remember what season of Game... Again, it was a Game of Thrones thing, but they were actively being like, if you sign up now, you can get it, the basic package that we offer for $15 a month, and that will give you Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
If you sign up now, you can then go watch that on Foxtel Go or Foxtel Play or whatever.
Yeah.
It was an incredibly circuitous way to be acknowledged like, all right, there's a whole bunch of consumers who are not going to, who want to watch Game of Thrones and aren't going to be able to go through our traditional sort of route or whatever. The point is like they really held on to their old way of doing things for so long. If only because like they were afraid. It's like once we...
Well, I mean, even right now, the cable bundle, so they've got Binge, as we said, which is really popular in Australia. KO seems very popular as well as far as like sports streaming is concerned. Cable TV makes up 66% of their revenue. Like they're still declining. This is even with all of the cord cutting that's happening, 10% down year on year, blah, 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 blah. It's like they're making all their money from the cable boxes still. So how the hell do you... Classic innovator's dilemma, folks.
Yeah. There was a profile of this whole Hubbl, Foxtel, Binge, etc. thing in the AFR recently, and an analyst made a really good point. And this is, I think, applies not just to Foxtel, but every cable TV business globally. Once someone cuts off their $100 a month subscription, maybe a bit less, maybe $80 a month or whatever, you're never, ever going to get that amount of money from them ever again.
No.
It's just not going to happen. Because even when you add together every Foxtel offering, like, okay, you got Binge, you got KO, you got Flash if you decide to do that. Even throwing all those together does not get you up to that level.
And even say you're doing this bundling stuff where, I get Netflix and say Disney, whatever, Disney, Paramount.
They're only getting a tiny cut.
Yeah,
of
the percentages
like an
of
affiliate referral, I assume.
Exactly. Like, especially when they're like discounting it by $5 or $10, that even if they were to somehow get the revenue up to like that $80 by bundling all this stuff, the margins are going to be so fucking slim. Because the only place they can make margin is off their own things, Binge and KO, which is the strategy here, right? Get Hubbl on the TV, give people these kind of bundles and packages, promote Binge and KO or whatever, and like make them front and center of your TV so people like have to subscribe to those ones and then like somehow get margin there.
It's crazy. And this is obviously with the added factor, which has obviously been a factor for a decade now, the preponderance of choice the consumers have is very high. So obviously there's obvious ones like you can be paying for Netflix, you can be paying for Disney Plus, and here's the kicker: HBO or like Warner Brothers Discovery are going to roll out HBO Max or Max
as
it is now called. dropped the HBO. It was too cool. It was too great a brand to have attached to it in Australia. And what that will mean is that HBO, which is like the last big draw to subscribe to Foxtel or Binge or whatever, at least on the dramatic front. Yes, there's still like a bunch of sports stuff. But in terms of like shows that people
Succession
really
and this kind of
to
crap.
watch Succession, to watch,
Orange is the New Black. Is that still in vogue?
that's on Netflix, but and like True Detective and the stuff. HBO is obviously still a purveyor of quality television, and they attract a lot of people. House of the Dragon, which is the Game of Thrones spin-off, that's all going to go off Foxtel.
Yeah. Or off Binge.
Off Binge
as well. Like
yeah. It was a few years ago. There was like a big bidding war between them and Stan about signing up for HBO content, and for a moment it looked like Stan might get that library.
Stan's the other kind of Australian Netflix clone.
Owned by Channel 9. And that was like an existential moment for them. They did manage to get a deal over the line, but I think even back then they knew they're going to roll out HBO Max or Max in Australia at some point. And then what are you left with? I mean, if you look at the Binge movies and TV shows they have, they've got like their locally produced stuff, which,
By the way, like 10% content has to be Australian content.
That's right, yeah. So if you want to watch the Mayor Friedman biopic they got going on there, that's totally your prerogative. But then they have a shitload of just like library content, which they've obviously bought from studios and is basically available on every streaming service.
Yeah.
Or at least one other streaming service. It's not unique to Binge. It's probably nice for people that already have a Binge subscription, but there's probably not a huge number of people who are signing up specifically to get this random assortment of films that they've picked up on a library basis. They don't have the Disney Fox library because that's obviously with Disney. Every other studio is like withdrawing their stuff. Paramount has Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
Not going great for them, but they are, taking it. What gets left?
Well, you know what gets left? Again, I'm not a big... Any Downie who's listening to this for a while knows that I'm not a big TV head.
No.
Or cinema head. I don't have a cinema head.
He considers it a waste of time.
Well, I never said that. I never made that claim.
Ralph says if it didn't happen, I don't want to know about it.
If it didn't... It's fiction I have a problem with. That's not true.
I just want to raise... Avatar didn't happen. Literally.
Pandora doesn't exist.
Literally doesn't exist.
Newsflash.
So why would I waste my time thinking about it?
That's not true. I read fictional books. Well, actually, I don't really do that either. I used to. But no, I haven't for years.
Basically, Raph is not engaged with the imaginative
the make-believe.
Yeah.
Or the paranormal, for that matter.
Don't believe in ghosts. Haven't seen Avatar 2.
I bundle them in the same kind of box. Regardless. So I don't claim to be an expert on the content, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
However, the streaming services have a problem here where it's like, as we've discussed, the business model is much, much harder. So Foxtel and Murdoch will say this, is like what we do is we buy rights and then we monetize them. You know, it's a rights arbitrage thing. I've said arbitrage so many times this episode.
But you're right. That is if you're not producing your own content en masse, that's what you're doing.
The flip side is like people who are like producing their own content, like the Paramounts or Disneys or whatever of the world, instead of licensing them to other people around the world, and they're like, screw that, we're going to monetize our own content. Both of these players are finding it very, very hard in the digital world to make this work, or very expensive at the very least. Like on the Fox side, as I said, like part of the allure there was that having the bundle with everything in it meant that they could work out margins and work out segments, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
On the other side of like the Paramount side, I think they're kind of working out that basically unless you're Netflix, this is a hits business, and which is why Paramount are doing things like buying like in America a single NFL final game and offering people to all sign up for that and hoping they'll stick around to watch, I don't know, whatever the hell else Paramount does.
Yeah.
Or just like forget. Like honestly, I wonder how many people who have subscribed to Paramount like to watch an NFL semi just forgot.
Oh, look, I'm pretty sure I'm paying for Paramount currently.
Yeah.
Because I made the terrible mistake of basically doing the Hubbl thing, but through Amazon Prime. You can sign up for Paramount through Amazon. So all the content is shown within the Prime interface. But what that means is anyone who's tried to like unsubscribe from an Amazon service knows that it's like you can do it. It's not like it's definitely not a company that hides it from you, but it definitely involves like clicking through a bunch of like database style menus.
Yeah, exactly.
To like look at the list of
and
things.
weird microservices or whatever.
They're like, hey, we're going to show you the guts of the service.
Yeah, exactly.
Just get in there and disconnect it. You're like feeling like a sysadmin as you're like, all right, I'm just going to disconnect this service, remove the API.
Yeah, exactly. But first, permissions. I got to go through the
Oh,
permissions.
shit, I got to go through the permissions thing.
Oh,
This one's permission for my credit card once per month. All right, let's just like take that down. But as a result, like, I'm pretty sure I've been paying for Paramount for months because I sign up for one show.
Yeah, but they're obviously finding it. They're like, okay, yeah, we produce them. Now we've got to make this technology around it. Now we've got to acquire customers and somehow keep them after they've watched like the show that we produce. And I know that I've been a Netflix bear for a long time, from early, with my philosophy basically being that like Apple TV wins in the end because Netflix doesn't own the end distribution. But at least in the midterm, A, it appears that Netflix has kind of basically won the streaming battle. And B, places like Paramount in the short term will probably make a lot more money just licensing their shit to Netflix.
Yeah.
And not worrying about all the other crap that Netflix has already got down pat.
Well, there's two forces I think that are coming to the fore. The first one is what you're describing basically, which is that if everyone gets dragged down to fighting in the streaming pit, Netflix is going to win.
Yeah.
Because at least you're right in the short, like there are long-term forces that maybe won't play out in their favor. But at least now it is a sort of a lean, hungry business that knows what they're doing, has like the best team in the business technologically in terms of like acquisitions. They have I personally think a lot of the content that Netflix puts out is kind of dog shit, but I think they've nailed it in sort of figuring out what the unwashed masses kind of want from streaming content. They've got enough.
It's the default, right? It's like you have Netflix and then all the other ones come and go.
It is the only one out of any of these streaming services that could even be considered like a default. Yeah. Well, I'll have Netflix plus something else, or I'll, and yes, people churn in and out of this stuff, but they're in like a really good position there. But the second one is that, and Netflix is absolutely subject to this as well, is that everyone is kind of realizing, and it's not just streaming, it's across a lot of different content and media businesses, you can't really beat the business model of just like whacking ads against stuff.
Yeah. Again, as I said, I'm not a content guy. I predicted Netflix would have ads and I predicted Netflix would have sport. And but yes, whacking ads against stuff.
Slapping ads, or like getting people engaged and their eyeballs locked on something, then slapping a few ads in there. We've talked about an episode in the past that Netflix basically said of the past few earnings, our like ad-supported tier has been like a phenomenal success. And it does produce a huge amount of money because it turns out, and meanwhile, companies like Meta are like, I told you, bro. Like, this shit rocks. Like, if you can get like a targeted audience and you can sell, like whether it's programmatically or hand sell for like some TV ad stuff, it's a really great business.
Yeah. Well, which like Netflix problem at the moment is just like they just want to create more inventory. They want to create more spaces to put ads. Their issue at the moment is like not enough people are seeing the ads.
Yeah.
So you can only expect them to, will we see a free Netflix tier soon? I think it probably makes sense.
I think it does make sense, although I think they are kind of like a little bit wary of it.
Well, I only say that because the issue with an ad network is like you need lots of eyeballs for advertisers to want to be on it and like pay the money. Like, so Facebook is a classic example because like all Facebook are doing is constantly looking for new places to shove ads. Yep. Stories came out, sweet, new ad placements. Reels came out, new ad placements. Like messengers, like they put ads in message. They just want more and more and more and more and more places to put ads, which drives down the cost, which is a good thing because more people want, like ad prices going down is a good thing for these companies because what it means is that they're expanding inventory and have potential for growth. Anyway, yes, Netflix need to find the ability for more ads to be on there.
Yeah, and they're doing, you can kind of see them, there are a lot of things that Netflix has like not done in the past or is considered kind of out of their remit that they are expanding into. We talked a bit about sports. They've now made a big deal with like the WWE, which is not quite sports, but you can really see the Netflix logic there, where it's kind of like
it's narrative, but it
is narrative, but it is sport, and people do watch it like sport, even though it's made differently, and they've bought like exclusive rights for that kind of stuff. And also like John Mulaney, the comedian, has just started like a nightly live show on Netflix, which is running for like the next week or two.
Well, also them at their latest like quarterly saying that they're no longer going to report on subscriber numbers.
Yeah.
But they are going to obviously keep doing like revenue numbers and stuff. They're trying to downplay that, like, don't worry about our number of subscribers, worry about our revenue.
Well, worry about the money. Yeah, which that definitely puts them in the mindset of like, we've realized that there's probably a limit to how many people are going to subscribe to Netflix globally. We can kind of fluff those numbers by doing a lot more local content, getting, a lot more local Netflix Indian productions to get more Indian subscribers on. But at the end of the day, things like ads and whatever in our future, doubling down on that and just getting more money out of each individual subscriber and so on. Anyway, I think like the broad point there is that like Netflix have been doing very well. Their model, and a lot of that has come down to like really aggressively sticking to their guns, even when it does not seem it seems super counterintuitive. Like one classic point is that I think everyone realized that like the Netflix binge model, where you just drop an entire season of TV and go watch that at whatever time you want, is just like a killer for hype for a show. Because the whole reason that a lot of serial TV shows work is you got a cliffhanger at the end of the week. People talk about the show all week. They theorize about what's happening next.
Yeah, water cooler conversation.
Yeah, water cooler conversation. Netflix basically killed that concept because there's no water cooler conversation. You watch the show as quickly as you can, and then someone's like, "Oh, have you finished watching whatever?" And they're like, "Nah, I'm only up to episode 3." Completely off kilter. Whereas other companies, like, everything from traditional programming like HBO to like Apple TV does weekly releases for companies like Amazon and Apple basically just make the decision based on whether they think the show is going to go really well.
Yeah.
If they think it's going to be a super hypey show, they will release it weekly. And if not, they'll drop the whole show at once. Netflix has just like studiously refused to do that at any point. They're like, nah, this is our model. You drop the whole show. You drop the movie. We don't do theatrical releases unless we're absolutely forced to do theatrical releases. Whereas Apple is like totally happy to be like, yeah, we'll run this like Martin Scorsese movie that we paid $250 million for into cinemas for a couple of weeks because we want to project the image that we're prestige. Netflix is like, nah, fuck that.
I wonder if Netflix saw it as kind of delayed revenue in that, like, if people are kind of price sensitive or whatever, and there's some hypey show, people will just wait for 12 episodes to be out, then subscribe for a month and then churn or whatever. So they're like, why not just pull forward that revenue and then try and like keep the subscriber rather than...
Yeah, I mean, like, their calculation is obviously like the hype is not worth it. I get, like, sure, if they thought it would be worth it on a monetary...
Oh, totally. Like, yeah.
They'd do it.
There's a reason they do it. They obviously find it beneficial. I just, someone who hasn't really thought about this space that much, I'm trying to work out what the business logic is behind it. And I assume it's something like that. I don't know.
I think part of it is also, I mean, this is the cynical take. If you take it in conjunction with the fact they really hate doing theatrical releases, which kind of pisses off cinema heads. Because they're kind of like, if you don't do a theatrical release and have like a big moment for people to all come in and sit in the cinema and watch it, these movies just disappear, right? Like, they don't make an impact on the culture. But I think like that in conjunction with like the binging model, I think they just want to kill traditional modes of consumption and be like, this is the only way to do it. Our way or the highway, you watch it on Netflix and you have a Netflix subscription, or you don't fucking see it at all.
Yeah,
Whereas like Apple is kind of stuck in and Amazon as well. Amazon also got compelled to do theatrical releases. They're kind of stuck in a midway position where they're like, oh, the directors really want us to do it. Like, the distributor really wants us to put it out in theatrical. We want to get awards, like award season.
Yeah.
Netflix is just like, nah, this is all content, mate.
When I hear that, like, I think like it was like, well, Amazon and Apple are like less again, both of them, I see them as more as like a churn mitigation play, right? It's like
well, that's it. I think Apple.
Whereas like Netflix are trying to make money off this shit.
I think, yeah, Apple in particular, and I don't know if it's I don't know if this has changed a lot, but they were really, really obsessed and hungry with like getting awards and being considered like a prestige cinema brand.
Yeah, and obviously Bezos was at the, when he was running the joint, right? Like, he kind of wanted to be able to go to the friggin' whatever your awards are called.
He wanted to go to the Oscar. He wanted to be like in with the set, which is like was one of his big dreams, potentially to meet women. I think was the big dream for Bezos. So, I mean, Apple won an Oscar. They got it for Coda. Like, they did it. Like, they've gotten multiple awards for their stuff.
But they have so much money.
Well, that's it. Like, it is kind of funny. This, again, comes back to the whole thing of how funny it is that Apple's a content business now. Martin Scorsese, a couple of other directors, they have just, like, bought their films, bankrolled them for, like, $200 million just for the prestige. And, like, you know, fair play to someone like Martin Scorsese who's like, I'm at the end of my career. I've got a couple of big ideas of things I really want to do. And, like, this is, like, a brand that's just hungry for, like, cinematic prestige.
And they're probably not going to put too much pressure on me to, like, you know, change it because at 10 minutes time we need an action scene.
No, exactly. Like, I don't think Apple are giving them that kind of notes, at least not rigid ones. Like, Netflix is kind of like, if people are clicking away from this in 45 seconds.
And every scene we need to sub out those actors for, like, the Spanish actors. Now they got to bring in the Korean actors.
I don't think, and, like, this is the thing.
I don't know if Netflix is still doing that. That was the whole big idea with Netflix, where it's like, whoa, they can scale content. Like,
No, they're always coming with exactly.
Whereas Apple, like, $200 million, like, they probably made it now and now again.
Just give $200 million a month to Scorsese, and as I said, like, mine's just like, fuck, if they're going to give it to me, I'm going to spend every dollar of that. I do feel like Apple have probably hit the limit of doing that. Like, I don't think they're going to keep giving that absurd amount of money to every director that walks around. But
I don't know. Services revenue is the only thing that's growing for them. And I know that we've said this time and time again. They like to say services revenue has grown 17% year on year. You know, we point to these amazing collaboration with Scorsese. It's like, mate, it's gems.
It's gems.
It's gems in the App Store. Not Scorsese.
No one's fucking watching Martin Scorsese. We've obviously got sidetracked talking about other streaming stuff. But this is the sort of universe that, I mean, just contextualize that. Hubbl and Binge and whatever are trying to, like, compete with. They're about to lose HBO.
Yeah.
The sport is getting, like, splintered and spread out all over.
It's more and more and more competitive. Well, because now, like in the US, and I'm sure it's coming here, like, the Amazons and the Apples and the Googles of the world are bidding on sport. It's like, okay, good fucking luck.
Yeah, exactly. And we talked about this in our sport broadcasting episode ages ago, but the cost of sport deals is just going up and up and up and up. And the classic example is the NBA. Like, the cost for the NBA streaming rights just goes astronomically higher every year.
Even though it's actually becoming less popular.
Even though the viewership is plummeting, because it still remains it becomes a bigger and bigger slice of, like, the pie.
Yeah, and it's guaranteed subscriber revenue, right? Like, if the NBA changes so that you can only access it somewhere, you know that 100 million people are just
there's a built-in audience who are always going to watch the NBA playoffs. That's just never going to change. So even though there are technically less of them in terms of a slice of the streaming landscape or the consumption landscape, it's more and more important. So that's those dynamics are definitely reflected in Australia. So think about, like, Foxtel has to pay more and more and more and more, as they just did in the cricket deal with in partnership with Channel 7.
Yeah, well, and the AFL deal, which they negotiated a few years ago, kicks in now. It's an extra $110 million a year they've got to cough up just for the same, well, it's slightly more exclusivity around AFL.
And the cricket deal was like $4 billion or something. It was some absurd amount of cash, which was a huge jump on a yearly basis. They're fighting for that. They lost the rugby to Stan, so Stan tried to get in the sport, and as far as I'm aware, they only have rugby. Again, this is obviously rugby union.
Okay, but see, what you're describing here, the splintering, wouldn't it be amazing if when you turned on your TV, you didn't have to worry about any of that? All of your content in one place. One screen, with obviously some suggestions for what you can watch now on Binge. However, I can see it though, right? Like, strategically, it's like, basically, let's recreate the cable bundle. What's the cable bundle? It's, you know, Fox 8 and National Geographic and Hallmark and, you know, a few sports channels and CNN and ESPN and this, all in one big package. What if we just take the streaming services and do the same thing? And people, we also abstract away the actual subscription just so people can watch whatever they want to watch, and we'll end up, again, at some similar amount of revenue through these, like, big bundles, and we'll just recreate it. Obviously all well and good, except for the fact that it's like, why you and not literally the shit that comes on my TV?
Yeah, exactly. There's no reason why it should be them. Although it does seem funny that like that is the way that like bundling is achieved by like some hacked together affiliate marketing play, which maybe saves you $10 a month.
But also forces you to sign up. Because, I mean, the churn numbers are astronomical. Even, like, again, same AFR article was talking about, like, the KO numbers and how at the end of the AFL season, basically, there's a huge subscriber drop-off unless Australia is playing India or England in the cricket, in which case, like, people will stick around. But, like, recently we played Pakistan and West Indies, and so just, like, insane drop-off. Because they were like, oh, I'll subscribe again in April. KO is $35 a month.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, sweet. I'll take $150 for unsubscribing for 5 months. Like, that's genuine money.
I mean, and the unspoken factor that KO is just, and binges too, is a terrible service on a technological level.
Yeah.
Like they can barely serve the audience that they're supposed to be serving with the content they have.
Now, I've already done a KO rant.
You've done it before,
but it's been a while. I've got a new rant.
I can see you're winding up.
So I believe a year ago, I was super mad at KO because if you're watching a replay, for example, and you're like halfway through and you leave the room to make yourself some food or something like that, and then the Apple TV goes to sleep, KO will not remember where you were up to in the broadcast. You have to like press start from beginning and then like scroll to the point in time. Or if you're just watching like a live thing delayed by 10 minutes, again, like it'll forget where you're up to if you pause it for like 5 minutes or something like that. And you have to just scroll and these are on broadcasts that are like 4 hours long. In the case of golf, like 10, 12 hour long things, you've got to like somehow scroll through and find whether you're up to 6 hours and 35 minutes, whatever. Now that has changed a little bit with regards to AFL. Will it remember where I was up to in the broadcast where I paused? No. But they have put in a new feature, which is where they mark all the goals and behinds on the timeline so you can skip to a goal.
Yeah.
Who wants that? No one.
I think because they also do like they cut it up into clips and stuff that you can watch as well, right?
KO minis, yeah. There's minis. But like if I actually want to watch the game, as I said, on a 10-minute delay, it like also kind of ruins the game for me. But like
because you can see them on the timeline,
and also like why is that popping up? And you know it forces you to scroll between the goals and behind. It's like no, I just want to know where I was up to. I paused the show. I want to keep watching it from where I was up to. They spent time and resources on like a weird goals and behinds on the timeline thing. Like that's a big job. Like that's not a small feature. Just in your database, say I was streaming 19970777089x
and return to that point
at 19 seconds and 23. Just remember that.
Yeah,
just remember. Look at the database. Have I watched this before? Yes. Where was I up to? There. Resume from that point.
Well, this is what happens when you try to go up against like the Netflix engineering team with like a local Australian. I mean, I was reading a review of the Hubbl. This was one of the Australian tech sites or whatever, and they were talking about the Hubbl. And they were basically like, the review was overall kind of like mildly positive in the sense that it was like, well, this is functional.
Yeah.
The interface is nice and snappy.
Yeah.
It's got all your content you could possibly want. Thumbs up for me on that one. This might be good for your mum or whatever.
Yeah.
Who still wants that. But then it was like, but there's one small issue that I couldn't really get my head over is that while you're watching binge on it, it doesn't automatically progress to the next episode of the TV show you're watching. So you have to return to the menu, then select the next episode. And I was just like,
even iView does that.
It's like that is a fundamental feature of expectation that it's going to keep rolling with the content. But it's also like, isn't that just like crucial for what you want from your customers to keep watching rather than booting them out at the end of every fucking episode?
That's crazy that it would launch with that. With no autoplay. Like, you're dead right that like literally everyone has just become accustomed to like,
stuff just keeps playing. You know, they haven't got that dog in them.
I guess they want, I'm assuming what they want is that kind of auto recommendation algorithm to be more than binge in the future, right? It'll work out what you'd be into and then like kick to like a Netflix show or something, like a TV station.
That's the dream. I don't really trust the Foxtel.
Well, nor do I actually think that that's what people want, right? You just want the next episode.
You just want totally. No, you don't want to be. But again, I don't know if there are other aspirations even at the level of recommending you some diverse range of content from whatever, and could
or is it just that's the easiest way to get it out the door was like show end, back to the home screen, fella.
and you can select from our wide range of other content. Anyway, down round rating on the Hubbl. Buy now. Even if you've got an Apple TV, a Roku, if you've got a Fetch box, I mean, the Fetch is kind of in the same universe as the Hubbl.
When the Hubbl TV, in particular, if when that comes out, right, which is like the TV you buy with it fully integrated, buy it.
Just get it. Get on the website, pick it up, replace your home theater system.
Free TVs with a subscription.
I mean, that's kind of the classic. And there's a few different companies that provide it, like the Hubbl equivalent with Sky in the UK has a version of this.
Sign up for 12-month contract or 24-month contract at $99 a month.
And you get the TV.
And you get the TV.
It's quite possible that there are people that would be down for that. But again, I don't know, if someone's in the place where they're going to sign up for a subscription, they're thinking on that level now, I feel like they might be engaged enough just to buy a fucking TV. But I could be wrong. It's like, you know how there's like that, I don't know if it's available in Australia, but they launched that one where it was like the TV with like the mini TV below it that's always showing ads.
No,
So it's basically, it's like a 42-inch or maybe a 50-inch screen, flat screen TV, and it comes bundled with like a ultra wide, almost like a fucking touch bar of a screen, but like, you know,
it's just,
that is mounted below it, and you have to have that always running, and you get the TV for free, but then it just displays ads constantly on the lower screen. And if you disconnect them, you get charged for like the entire cost.
what if you just like hang up like a piece of like black material?
Put in something over
Like
top
the
of it.
Joe Rogan question alert. What
Yeah.
if we just get some gaffer tape and just tape over it?
I feel like
They would have thought of
maybe
that?
they would have thought of that, and they have like some sort of sensor, but I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, and we've said this over and over and again, you will own nothing and you will be happy.
Yes. A Kashlob.
Hey, Raf,
Hey, James.
did you know that you can get an extra episode of Down Round every single week on top of the one that you're already getting?
Yeah, I knew that.
Well, yeah, obviously you know, but the person is, I'm using you as a vessel to explain.
Sorry, as I'm the listener. No, go on. Tell me more, James. How much does it cost?
A mere $7 a month, Raf.
Okay, where do I go to find out more about this?
You go to downround.net.
Okay, I want it.
Well, I'm sure you do.
I feel like I'm missing out by not having it.
Exactly. No ads. Second episode per week, and a few other little goodies that are coming down the pipeline as well. Head to downround.net
Downround.net.
and sign up to Downround Premium.